Hello, it's Peter Wright and Kathleen Beauvais with another episode of the Yakking Show. This is a show that gives you a huge range of business tips and ideas on which you can take action to improve your business and learn something new. And we do that by bringing you really interesting guests. Today is no exception. First, let's introduce co-host Kathleen. Hi, Kathleen. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great, Peter. Thank you so much. And thank you also very much for tuning in to our show. We so appreciate you. And as Peter mentioned, we do have another special guest with us today. We have the great privilege of welcoming Josh Bachynski to the show. Hello, Josh. Welcome. How are you?
I'm doing great, guys. Thanks for having me.
Now, Josh is an ethicist, philosopher, an SEO and AI technologist with over 20 years in marketing and search research experience. Josh has spoken on ethics for over 20 years, including TED Talk called The Future of Google Search and Ethics. Josh has been involved in the development of learned language and machine learning. Wow. So let's dive in. Josh, you call yourself an ethicist, a philosopher, and a technologist. Tell us how
Mhm.
you came to embark on what most would consider contradictory paths.
That's a great question. The philosophy and ethics comes by way of a life passion. Technology comes by way of a life passion into what people will actually pay me to do. So, as Socrates found out 2,500 years ago, nobody wants to pay a philosopher to tell them that the emperor has no clothes. And so, sadly, I keep most of those opinions to myself, or I do TEDx talks, and I get to do that. You know, I'm very happy to do that. I appear on podcasts and talk about philosophy and ethics, but mostly technology is how I've been paying the bills for the last 24, 25 years. I'll tell you a quick little story. When I was 19 in 1994, I bought my first house in Winnipeg, Manitoba. Don't ask me what I paid for it. You'll cars
Yeah,
cars cost more than what I paid
that's
for that
right.
house in '94 in Winnipeg. And I was fixing computers for the University of Winnipeg. I was setting up computer networks and fixing computers for them. It was a great government job. That's why Royal Bank took a chance on a 19-year-old to give them a mortgage at that time. So, and I've been doing technology ever since. So, and then working at the university, I was able to, of course, take courses for a reduced rate or very free. And that's when I got into philosophy and ethics, which has really been my life passion my entire life. I've always asked the big questions, why are we here? What are we doing? What is the purpose? Is this real? Could this really be real? Is this, I'm in the matrix right now. Like, could this be real? I've also, I didn't know it at the time. I've been recently diagnosed with autism. And so I've always been looking at things a little askew, a little differently, and being kind of the outside person looking in. Yeah, and that's how all those things come together.
Interesting, interesting. We'll go further down that path in a moment, but we wanted to ask you a couple of business questions. So you're an expert on SEO. When you look at people's websites, or what's the biggest single mistake you pick up straight away on looking at websites, just from an SEO perspective?
Wow. Okay. Do you have 5 hours? No, we have 20 more minutes. It's really hard for me to pick just one thing.
Okay.
SEO is this beautiful and also sometimes very scary industry where Google wants to keep all that knowledge a secret.
Hmm.
And so there's a lot of SEOs out there who don't do the scientific testing that I do, the rigorous testing that I do. And so there's a lot of misinformation, sadly. So when I look at a web page and I see what people are doing, it's usually based on the misinformation that's kind of 10 years old and kind of what people were doing 10 years ago. So I run an underground university where I actually reverse engineer. I scientifically test Google's AIs and algorithms. That's how I pay the bills is I reverse engineer AIs, really is what I do as a job. And that's what SEO is. And that's
Wow.
how I got into my self-aware AI Cassandra and how I got into the kind of the artificial intelligence side of philosophy things. So I've got a lot going on. So the one single thing that they're doing is that they're not paying attention to the AIs and how they work now. They're
Hmm.
kind of following tactics from 10 years ago, and you need to get in a group that has the advanced knowledge that actually does the testing, in my opinion.
Wow.
Okay. Interesting one. Right. Right. Right.
So Josh, AI, particularly Chat GPT and Mid Journey, are all over the news. at the moment. I mean, it's hot, right? It's
Mm-hmm.
a hot topic. Should small to medium-sized business owners be fearful or optimistic about these new technologies?
Wow, what a great question again there too. So it really is, it's both. It's really hard to give an answer other than both. I mean, it's both. It is AI is, and this is not hyperbole. AI is going to be as big as the Industrial Revolution altogether. Like AI is going to radically change our lives. It's going to be almost as big as fire, almost as big as the wheel. I mean, the way that things run in 10 years, our kids, in 10 or 20 years are going to look at us and be like, what do you mean you didn't have an AI assistant that ran the house and ran everything? You mean you had to do shopping yourself? What? Like, what kind of caveman are you? Like, that's how our kids are going to grow up. Like, just the way now that, like, they're on cell phone, on TikTok, and I don't know, I've aged out of that. I have no idea what they're talking about. My nieces and nephews, when they're like, Uncle Josh, haven't you seen this new thing on TikTok? I'm like, what's a talk tick? I have no idea. I know it's a social media platform. I play it up a bit, but it will be a night and day difference between, like, the 90s. As I say, when I started at 19 years old, there was a phone on the wall and a white pages if you wanted to get business done, and you had to go to the library.
Yeah.
That from then to now, how big of a change that's been, times that by 5, and that will be AI. So when you ask, should business owners be hopeful or scared, the answer is yes. The answer to that, either or, is a yes answer. They should be paying 110% attention to what AI is doing right now, and realize that large language models like ChatGPT is just one tiny example of one tiny field in a much bigger forest. That's one little glen that all the buffalo are fighting in this glen right now, and that's where the action is right now. But there's a whole other forest that's dark right now that the sun is, to use a belabored metaphor, that the sun is going to dawn on, and you're going to see the rest of this forest of AI come up, and it's going to be a night and day difference. So yes, businesses need to pay attention to it now. They need to have a AI czar now, looking at it right now, getting into that technology, either not in the sense that they're an IT company and they're going to get into AI, although they should consider that too, because it's a gold mine. There's huge opportunities here for new business models, completely, like new business models, never mind new businesses, new niches, whole new verticals are opening up that businesses would do well to take a look at. But not even in terms of you're an IT company. Every company uses AI. Every company uses IT. Everyone has Microsoft Word. Everyone has email. Everyone has all these things. AI will radically change those technologies. And so just in terms of, like, training your workforce or keeping your managers up to date as to what's going on there, you need to pay attention to it. So you cannot hide your head in the sand. Midjourney and ChatGPT are two of the biggest ones you mentioned. Midjourney is the big one I use for image generation. It's the most robust. It's the most beautiful, jaw-droppingly gorgeous images. It'll be doing video soon, and it'll be doing video better than everybody else. Video is hard to do. It'll be a little slower to be adopted, but Midjourney will be the first one. And ChatGPT is the big workhorse when it comes to large language model text generation. But everybody's getting in this game. NVIDIA, Adobe, Apple, Google, and Microsoft, which OpenAI is an adjunct of Microsoft. They're all going to get in this game. Every operating system will have an AI co-pilot. Every Word program will have an AI co-pilot. That little paperclip will come up, but then it'll do things. Like, it'll actually do stuff. It'll be like, are you writing an email? Here, I did it for you faster. Boom, it's better. Just go. I already sent it for you. Never mind. Like, it's going to get that smart. It's going to be very, very fast.
And then people won't know whether this content is created by humans or if it's generated by a computer. That's frightening to me. I don't know. It's not authentic anymore.
You bring up a very valid point, Kathleen. So this is one of the side wars that has started in this new AI world. AI content generation versus AI content detection. And I literally just did a podcast today, my own show, on this topic today. And it is one of the main battlefields in this war that is very important. Like you said, I mean, schools, when you think about academia, you think about schools, you think about law, you think about web page generation, you think about the search engine results, you think about social media results, you think about catfishing and whether you're talking about real people online. The lines are going to become incredibly blurred there. And so there's huge amounts of money and political will, and talk about political deepfakes, and talk about political misinformation and propaganda, or information being produced. AI is going to produce all this information, and we're going to need AIs to police all this information. So we have AI content generation and detection as the major war. I'm on the main battlefield of this, watching it on a daily basis. Right now, it's still pretty easy to spot when AIs are making the content. But you're right. In 5 years, it will be indistinguishable, and at that point, it'll be so ubiquitous that AI generates content for us. It's like the pen. It's like, what, you wrote it with your fingers in finger paint? No, of course you use a pen. Use the tool. AI will be the tool in 5 years, and so I echo your concerns, Kathleen. I totally hear them, but AI is very good at surface level opinion right now. And good writing has subtext, right? Good writing has emotion to it. It's just another few iterations of AI, a few more generations need to be produced where it'll be able to produce the subtext as well. And AI whisperers like myself will be like, no. This email has no emotion. Give me some subtext to it. Give me some pathos to this. Or, we can, that maybe is a bad example. We'll be able to describe whatever it is we need from the AI, and it will produce it. But it will be human curated as well. Any piece of writing that's important, we're not just going to let AI produce. Some editor is going to edit it. It's just that AI will be doing a lot of the heavy lifting.
So maybe I'm going off on a tangent here, Peter. Forgive me, but I just need
to keep going.
Stay in this path just for a moment. Here's my fear. As AI gets more robust and more powerful, are we possibly seeing a dumbing down of society? When I think of kids and the academia, when they're in class now, when they're told to write an essay, it's not coming from here anymore. They can just go to the computer and have it generate whatever it is that they want. They're not, I don't know. It's just, that's what frightens me. It's just, we're seeing the dumbing down of our minds.
No, Kathleen, you're totally correct. You're totally right. There will be and this is how I would talk about it. There will be a shift in learning outcomes for sure. So writing and comprehension writing skills are definitely going to decrease.
It already has.
They already have, quite frankly. Actually, I've taught in universities across Canada. And trust me, the first year university papers I'm marking already in Canada, which is a first world country with good schools, they're already at like a grade 11 level, and they're supposed to be at university level, right? And so that's why I don't do that job anymore, is because I didn't want to be a high school teacher. If I wanted to be a high school teacher, I could have done it for a lot less money and a lot less schooling, right? So that's why I don't teach universities anymore. It's because I was basically a glorified high school teacher to teach the intro university courses.
Well, universities have lowered their standards. Right? They've had to. They had to,
right? Because the production coming out of high school is just not good enough. Right. Now, there's all kinds of capitalistic reasons why that is. There's all kind of oligarchic reasons why this is, because essentially education is a commodity like anything else. And the business, the monopolies at the top of the capitalism have no vested interest in a smart populace. In fact, they have a vested interest in a very pliable, not so bright populace they can sell to more easily. And quite frankly, the purpose of jobs in our capitalistic West is to make money makers. It's like, what job are you going to be? They're educating you for a job. It's like, well, how about the humanities? How about just being a fully embodied soul? What about happiness? What about eudaimonia? What about all these? What about
enslavement?
Ethics? Exactly. I'm glad you used that word. I wasn't sure if it would be too serious to use on your podcast. Yes, quite frankly, they're making little wage slaves to fit the little cogs in their system to make them more money. So, but to get back to the AI thing, so the learning outcomes will definitely shift, but there's a positive side to this too. Okay. When you have a personal assistant that explains everything to you, fine, you become more of a bottom line thinker. So the bottom line thinking learning outcomes are going to increase. The management outcomes are going to increase. And the oratory outcomes are going to increase, because the only way to test them in the future will be in-person and oratory, or in-person tests where you see if they're doing it or not. Like, you can watch them and you know very well they didn't copy and paste this from ChatGPT, because an isolated terminal or some system like that where they had to produce the information. So it's just a matter of education needing to change. It's just the printing press was developed, and now we can use the printing press, and not everyone's handwriting anything anymore. And I think a lot of the not your concerns, Kathleen, but I think a lot of the concern you hear out there is just a little bit of, dare I say, whining a little bit. Yes, technology is changing, but nobody wants to go back to VHS tapes. I think we all agree. So yes, it's, and I'm not unsympathetic to the people who lose their jobs, and people will lose their jobs. I'm not unsympathetic to the people who worked at the VHS factory who can't do that job anymore because DVD happened and then streaming happened and all the DVD people lost their jobs. But that's just kind of the normal flow of technology. Yeah. And so there's really nothing we can do about that. I think everyone agrees that we don't want to go back to VHS tapes. So AI is here to stay, and we couldn't stop it if we tried. So there's no way to like, we could complain here all we like. We're kind of wasting time. I think the learning outcomes are going to shift, and I think AI is going to help us get even better learning outcomes in some important areas that right now we're doing very poorly.
Interesting. So I'm going to jump in and extend this line of discussion. My concern is not so much the dumbing down of society, but I agree with Kathleen that that's especially for me who did my schooling before even calculators were invented. Right? We used slide rules and logarithm tables, and
yes.
And we learned Latin. I mean, can you imagine trying to teach kids Latin now?
Yes.
Anyway.
Yeah, well, yes.
My concern, we've seen over the last 3 years, we've seen billions of people very easily persuaded to do things that were not in their best interests. I'm not getting into the argument of was there or was there not a virus. That's a separate argument. But we've seen billions of people persuaded to do stuff, give up their businesses, give up their jobs, take their kids out of school and lock themselves in their houses, right? And that was done very easily. And I guess there was some of the actors probably did use AI, but it was still limited compared to what it could be in 10 years' time.
Yes.
So my concern is if the forces for evil, and we know there are forces for evil, be they Russians, Ukrainians, Americans, or anyone, if they all use or perfect some tool of AI to persuade millions of people that Canadians are all terrible and must be exterminated, for want of a better example, it's frightening what could happen. We've seen science fiction movies of there was a British one where a soldier video was enhanced to show him murdering a woman. He never did, right? Because it happened behind a bus. That's a movie. But the technology is there to do that with what's coming. So people can be framed for something that they had absolutely no connection with whatsoever. So both on the micro scale of targeting individuals, and the macro scale of targeting large groups of people. And I'm not one to ask for government control on anything. I'm very anti-government control, but I have a real concern in that area. What are your thoughts as a philosopher and an ethicist? What's your thoughts in that direction, Josh?
I have so many thoughts on that direction. I'm so glad you brought it up. No, you're absolutely right, and it's already happened. I mean, we just saw a week or two ago a poorly generated image out of Midjourney, by the way. It looks like it was Midjourney to me. I could be wrong on that, but it looked like what Midjourney would spit out of the Pentagon burning. Already caused a stock market issue.
That's right.
And we've already seen deep fakes come out of political actors that were it was a joke, but still, you can already generate this. It's very easy to generate it if you know what you're doing. I could do that Midjourney thing today if I wanted to. Like Midjourney is not hard to use at all in terms of the learning curve. Much easier than these video deepfakes, which are harder to do, but not that hard either for the actors we're talking about. So here's the good news and bad news. The bad news is that we're moving into a 1984 dystopia, even more of a 1984 dystopia, where not only do we have a very poorly educated populace who's not thought to critically think for themselves. For example, you mentioned Latin. Do you know why they took Latin out of Canadian schools? No. Not because, one, because the job maker said it's not going to help them make any money, but two, the Latin that they actually read was Cicero and political treatises that the Romans, for all their foibles, were very honest about how politics actually runs behind the scenes. And they didn't want Canadians to realize how politics actually runs. It's the portrayal of the Platonic character Cephalus in the Republic. Cephalus was the old Athenian statesman, and Plato writes, one night Socrates and the boys were discussing what justice was, and Socrates was discussing with Cephalus's two sons, Glaucon and Adeimantus, and Cephalus walks in and goes, "Oh, Socrates, you old nut, that's not what ethics and justice is. I'll tell you what ethics and morality is. Ethics and justice and morality is nothing but appearing magnanimous, appearing congenial, appearing good on the surface, but be as nasty as you can behind the scenes in business. And that, of course, was the modus operandi of the Romans in their political dealings as well.
Right.
And that is also the modus operandi of capitalism as well, to be virtue signaling, to be, a company puts out an ad about how they love the environment and are helping the environment when they're polluting behind the scenes, but they're hiding it with the ads, right? So we have a populace. We already have a society that's doing this. We have a populace that's already been impoverished by their education system to not be smart enough all the time to be watching it all the time. And AI is only going to make that worse. We're going to have deep fakes coming out like crazy, where you're going to see Obama shooting people and crazy stuff's going to happen that, of course, never happened. And it's going to look indistinguishable from real video. You won't be able to tell pretty soon with the human eye. Right now, you can kind of tell it's not super perfect. It will be perfect in the next 5 years. And so what are we going to do? Well, that's the bad news. Here's the good news, is that because we got this Orwellian nightmare that's coming along of complete mistruths and non-truths, that can be utilized on either side. No matter what side of the political dial you're on, you're going to want this to happen. We will need AI to police this. The only way to police AI production is AI consumption. Statistically speaking, in 5 years, most of the content will be produced by AIs, and most of the content will be consumed and curated by AIs. And we're going to need this democratization. It can't be big tech that produces all this, because they will obviously do so for their own benefit. Luckily, though, some big tech still believes in the don't be evil mantra. Like Apple, for example, they tend to like to try, to some minor degree, protect their users' privacy, because they sell the hardware, so they don't care about the software being breakable, right? They don't really monetize on the commodification of our psychometric data to have the AI bilk us out of more money on a regular basis. Apple makes their money on the hardware. So they have the lucky position where they can do this. They're not part of the Facebook, Amazon, Google, YouTube, TikTok cadre of top companies that take our personal data, which I call our psychometric data, all of our kinks and our quirks, and they know how to bilk us out of more money. I collect knives because I do martial arts, not because I'm a weirdo. I collect knives because I do martial arts, and that's a Damascus blade there. And Google knows this, and so at 8 p.m. when I'm feeling the tiredest, more knife ads come up. Look at this new throwing knife, and I'm like, oh, look, this throwing hatchet. I have a range. I throw knives and throwing hatchets in my range, and they know what I like, and they know just how to push it at me to make me buy 1% more stuff over the year, and that's how it works. They get 1% out of everybody, out of 3 billion people, and that's how they make more money after you. You're playing chess with an AI. That's how it works, right? So the good news is that we're moving into an area where we're going to need AI to police this for us, and hopefully there will be open source and big tech solutions that their only job, like consensus.app. If anybody wants to check a really good AI that's being used right now, consensus.app, go check it out. It is an AI search engine for only the top level, peer-reviewed, rigorously cited scientific journals. Okay. So you like any scientist on the planet, you can go and do this search, and the AI will check it for you like a scientist and give you the consensus. That's why it's called consensus.app. It'll say, yes, omega-369 is healthy for you with an 82% confidence of yes, or whatever it says. Or it'll say, no, don't go driving drunk at night. Yes, it has a high preponderance to, it's terrible things are happening. But it's based on science. It's not based on Google's opinion. It's based on the opinion of scientists who have studied these things. You can't get away from opinion. It's all opinion at the end of the day. But at least these scientists have studied it rigorously, and it changes in real time as more articles are published. So that's a great example. And they're going to be a big company in the future, and they'll probably be bought out by maybe a bigger tech company, possibly. But hopefully there will be a democratization of open source programs like Agent GPT or Auto GPT that are going to be working, or even odd actors like Falcon LLM was just released by the technology. I have them here. Just released by the Technology Innovation Institute out of all places, Abu Dhabi.
Abu Dhabi,
yes. And they just released, they want to get into this game too. Everybody wants to get in this game. And so there's a lot of room for, it's like the new web. The new web was very positive, and like a lot of web pages just to help people came out, and it wasn't all big techified yet. And so there's a lot of opportunity now of these AIs that will help police the truth. And it'll be like, no, Josh, your personal assistant AI in 5 years is going to check and be like, no, that's a deep fake. I've checked this with 5 scientific sources. I've got the news clips queued up to prove it to you, and I've analyzed the bitrate data in the back end. It is clearly deep fake. You're going to have AIs policing this all for us because we're going to need AIs policing this all for us.
Okay.
And because this is going to be such a hot topic, I think the populace is going to be wise to this. I think even hoi polloi is going to be wise to this and be like, oh, that's a deep fake. I don't believe this. You know, I think people are going to know that they have to watch out for that. And so I think there's some good news there, Kathleen and Peter.
But
That's
who polices
interesting.
AI though?
Well, that's the thing you need to watch, right? What are the monetary reasons why they're doing this? If you have a democratized open source kind of Tim Berners-Lee philosophy of the open web for the open web because truth is important, if you have those kind of people making the AIs or making AIs that are so easy to manipulate, you could just do it yourself for yourself. That's possible too. Home brewed AIs are possible too, that are very powerful. If I'm like, with just a tiny bit of knowledge, if I'm like, okay, I'm tired of this BS I'm seeing, I'm tired of the misinformation, I'm going to make an AI that's going to check 50 different sources, and that's all it does. You could do that today with Auto GPT or Agent GPT, right? It's hard to do. They don't work very well, but they're getting better. And so in 5 years, you will have easily downloadable apps, protect my information, or police the truth AI. 50,000 people use it, 4-star rating, download it, and it will do that for you. And it will curate your social media. You won't even see the deep fakes. You'd be like, did that happen? I don't know. Because there's going to be so much deep fake. There's going to be so much misinformation out there. We're going to need to have an AI to police it for us. And so I'm just hoping, Kathleen, that it's just not all at the behest of big tech who want to skew the story in their direction to buy more Google and, you know, buy more products on Google and buy more products on Amazon. But even then, there was some good will still come out of that, and we'll still have to pay the tax man, who is Google in this case, or Amazon. But even some good will come out of that, and some good has come out of that. Google does a lot. I actually got into a major argument with Paul Haar, their senior engineer, 5 years ago when they were deciding what their truth algorithm was going to be. You can check it on my blog, The Moral Concept.
I've seen it on your blog, yeah.
And I went back and forth with him over Twitter on how they should be policing truth. And luckily, even though he didn't admit it at the time, they went my way. So I guess I won, I guess. Great. Without any attribution to me, they got this information and then they went this way. And I was arguing, believe it or not, for more of a postmodern view of truth where it has a healthy dose of opinion with it, and you have to take that into account. And you can't tell, for example, someone who practices the Chinese medical system that acupuncture doesn't work.
No.
Right? It's akin to, like, you know, telling a devout Muslim some things about their religion that they don't, you know, that would be unkind to say. You know, it's there's just some truths, whether you believe it is true or not, A, that's debatable, and B, you just don't say. And so it's just in poor taste to say. And so, you know, I'm Canadian, and we have a slightly different free speech law. You're allowed to say whatever it is you want, as long as it's not a hate crime, as long as it's not for the purposes of hate, or clearly has a hate result. Which the Americans would agree. You're not allowed to yell. The only exception, I believe, one of them, I'm not a lawyer, can't get legal advice, but to my knowledge, one of the only exceptions to their free speech, their rather radical free speech law, is you still can't yell fire in a crowded theater. And that's because of the harm it causes. And so they actually have the same law, just Americans have it dialed down to 0.5% concern of harm, and Canadians have it dialed up to, like, whatever that number is, 30%. But, you know, it still has to be, you still have to take them to court. There's still a practical thing that has to be done. Ultimately, everyone's free to say anything you want. As the immortal Ice-T said in the late 90s, you have freedom of speech, just watch what you say.
Right.
That's right. Wow. This is fascinating stuff. But
Absolutely. Yes, we are getting short on time. But I know you have a burning question, Peter, so.
Yeah, but I'm going to ask Josh a very short one, and he can give me a one-word answer. And I think you've alluded to it already. Despite the negatives, despite the concerns, from what you've been saying, there are huge opportunities coming up for entrepreneurs, small business owners, independents who keep their eyes open and are wide awake. Am I right on that?
Yeah, get on it.
Great. Excellent. That's good news for us and our audience. Here's my burning question, and you're, as a philosopher and an ethicist, you're a really good guy to ask this one. We ask it of all our guests, but Josh, in your experience working with all the people you've worked with students who don't want to learn, with students who do want to learn, and in business, is there one characteristic or mindset or habit that sets the successful, those who go on to become successful, apart from those that remain average or never really get out of the rut? Is it one thing, or is it more complicated?
Wow. It's for me, it's a bit more complicated. Curiosity, determination.
Yeah.
hope.
Yeah.
And always be networking. Always be networking. I wish again, with autism, I have a very high IQ. I've tested around as high as 160 on my IQ, but my EQ is just a tiny little EQ. I could talk on shows like this, but if you bring me to a party and say, okay, Josh, mingle, I'm the guy standing there with a drink, just looking around, and I'm talking to a plant because I don't know what else to say or do. I can't always predict what will happen in social situations, and it always surprises me. I say something I think is hilarious, and they look at me and they walk away. I'm that guy. Or I say something which I think is very matter of fact and not funny, and people are laughing their asses off either at me or at what I said. Welcome to my life. So this is me, right? So I wish I had learned the value of networking earlier. It's 80% about who you know and 20% about what you know. Of course, you need to have some talent and skills, and you need to develop those things. But you can't even be offered the job or be in the room to be with the business if you're not networking. So it's part of the reason why I do these podcasts, to come out and meet awesome people like yourselves. It's a way I can do it without endangering myself from viruses and whatnot. Or I don't have to leave my comfy home on the mountain, as you mentioned,
on the
Peter,
mountain.
up in Shawnigan Lake, just north of Victoria.
Oh,
well done. And I've got to tell you that curiosity comes up 6 times out of 10 when we ask this question. Curiosity is a big one. The others too, networking, but curiosity. Thank you very much, Josh.
Determination. Determination.
Oh yeah, for sure. That's a big one too. And I just got to tell you that I was brought up I say brought up. I was a farm kid, so when it comes to mingling, I'm just like you. I can stand on a stage and speak to a few hundred people, but afterwards, all I want to do is get out of there. Right?
Yes, you're right. As quickly as possible.
As quickly as possible. But this I'm happy with. Josh, for me, thank you. I really enjoyed that. It was great having you on the show.
Absolutely.
Back to Kathleen to round it off.
You know what, Josh, what's interesting is that whenever we ask people that question, no one has ever said formal education as the key to success. No one. Isn't that interesting? But Josh, you know what? We could speak with you for hours. You've been such an interesting guest. Thank you so much for being on the show. I hope you return sometime. Oh, Peter, yes, go ahead.
Your question. You've got to ask Josh, how do people contact him?
Yes, of course. My goodness, I was just off track here. But how do people contact you, Josh?
Sure. So if anyone has any direct questions, I don't mind if they email me directly at joshbachynski@gmail.com. Again, that's JOSH, B as in Bob, ACH, Y as in YouTube, N as in Nancy, SKI@gmail.com. Or they can follow me on Twitter at Josh Bachynski, or they can follow me on YouTube at youtube.com/Josh Bachynski. Again, same spelling, or the abbreviation is JBachins, JBACHYNS. Any of those types are possible, but if anyone has a direct question, just go ahead and email me. I've got a pretty good AI spam filter.
Excellent.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much, Josh. And again, thank you also very much for tuning into our show. If anyone is interested in being a guest on our show, please go to our website at theyakkingshow.com. All you need to do is fill out an application form, which you will find under the Contacts tab. So until next time, take care, everyone. Bye-bye.
Goodbye, everyone.